Quick introduction on myself to begin with. I'm Sam McLaughlin. So, met some of you before. For many of you, it'll be a new face, but I'm the campaign manager at Discover Economics, which is a campaign led by the Royal Economic Society. So, we've got some top guests today from University of East Anglia. We've got the Government Economics Service. We've got Inspiring the Future and OCR. So, I'm really excited to bring these guests to you today. And we'll be moving through one by one where they can give their insights into their side of economics, the opportunities they hold, and then we'll discuss, some things that you can actually put into play within your school so you can get some outreach happening pretty soon. And we'll also highlight a really exciting opportunity with OCR, where if you don't have economics teachers in your schools, well, we can do something to change that pretty soon, okay, with some expert guidance from OCR so we have more schools delivering economics across the UK. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do my screen share and just tell you a little bit more about Discover Economics itself. So like I say, I'm Sam, campaign manager at Discover Economics. So I want to show this picture first, as this is a picture that a sixth form student at a school that we work with drew recently when they said, draw an economist. As it happens, this sixth form student, yes, they were studying A-level economics, also studying art. You can probably tell, a very gifted artist here. But this is the perception that young people have of economics and economists. And let's be honest, not just young people, people across all walks of society. This is the perception they have of probably that stereotypical white male working in the finance industry, and probably heavily motivated by making lots of money for themselves. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the perceptions because Laura, who I'll hand on to shortly, is going to talk a little bit more about breaking down some of these perceptions. But this is what we're dealing with, and this is what we want to change. So, what is Discover Economics? Discover Economics is a campaign with three main aims. We want to broaden the appeal of economics to potential students. We want to change their perceptions of, the subject and the economists within it. And we want to attract more students from underrepresented groups. So we want more females, we want to reach more state schools, and we want more ethnic minorities involved in the subject. So the problem, some of you might be aware of these stats, but I'm going to highlight it just so everyone can see. There's a massive split in gender. 1 in 6 boys takes A-level economics. But when we compare that to girls, it's 1 in 17. There's a big underrepresentation of state school and Black students amongst, economics undergraduates. And fewer than 30% of these undergraduates are females. Now, this is a huge problem for society and equality. And the lack of diversity, ultimately makes a big problem because these economists are the people that may potentially go into key policy roles. And we need the people in these key policy roles to reflect the society that they're really helping to shape, which we see more and more in the media. A recent UCAS report from earlier this year titled Where Next? What Influences the Choices of School Leavers? It looked at when are young people making decisions. So they asked a load of students that were in their second year of their degree studies and said, at what stage was it that you made these decisions? And did you make any career decisions before you picked your GCSE subjects? Now, if we look at the little chart on the left, we can see that for students that are doing, medicine, computer science, or looking to do teaching, they actually made a lot of their decisions before they selected their GCSEs. But then on the flip side, if we look at economics, only 20% of those second year students said they actually chose economics as their firm career pathway before GCSEs. So this really highlighted, and a call to action from UCAS, that we need more targeted outreach work within schools to broaden the awareness of economics and the pathways it holds. We need more actual access to economics. Not enough state schools offer it. We don't have enough economics teachers. That's why we're doing today, because every school does have a careers leader, does have a careers advisor doing really great work, giving that impartial guidance. And I can speak on this one because I'm a former head of sixth form, and part of my remit was the careers leader role. So I know the great valuable work that you all do and that you can have on our young people. So that's a little bit of background on why we're doing this today. But before I hand over to Laura Harvey, who can tell a bit more about the subject and what it's like kind of studying it at university, I'm just going to pop up a little poll now, just to get an idea of, does your school actually offer it? And, how confident you actually feel in terms of guiding young people on economics. So I'm just going to pop this up now, give everyone just a moment to stick in your answers. It's just good to get an idea of who's part of the event and what your school already does. And, I'm sure some of you might already be well versed at guiding young people on economics, been doing it for years. Others maybe not so. Super. Thanks everyone for putting in your answers here. It's all very much appreciated to get an idea of who we've got on the call. So I'll share those results now, so hopefully everyone can see those. So we've got quite a good mix, actually. We've got quite a few schools that are already offering it, but a big chunk that aren't. Some people that are quite, happy actually supporting the students on it, some partially, and then some, maybe not at all. So that's really appreciated. Thank you for that one. I'm going to stop my screen share now, because that's just the little introduction for today. But let's be honest, you're not here just to listen to me. You're here to listen to our great guests. And I'd now like to introduce Dr. Laura Harvey from University of East Anglia, who can give you an insight into maybe the pathway that we think is the traditional kind of pathway for economics, but dispel a few myths as to what economics actually is. So yeah, over to you, Laura.
Thanks, Sam, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Laura Harvey, and I'm from the University of East Anglia. I'm just going to share my slides and hopefully it will work. So yeah, as I was saying, I'm from the University of East Anglia. I have a bit of an unusual role at the University of East Anglia in that I am a lecturer in economics, but I'm also a widening participation academic officer. So I do work quite a lot on outreach and widening participation within the university. I put on my introduction slide some pictures from one of our pre-COVID events, which we were able to fit in. July 2019, we had our first Women in Economics event at UEA, where we had female students from the local area who came and had a day with some guest speakers and did a taster session and things. It was a really nice day, and I'm gutted that we haven't been able to replicate it since then, but any excuse to get the pictures out and show everyone what we did. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to do that. So before I kind of go into my talk, I always think it's nice to hear about the person who's doing the talking. So a little bit about me. So I'm currently at the University of East Anglia. I've been there for 3 years now. And as I was saying, I work quite closely with our outreach team at the university, working with their kind of outreach program, as well as leading on some of my own projects. And a big part of my role is also supporting students once they arrive at university. So making sure that they're going to succeed with whatever it is that they do whilst they're at university and when they graduate. As part of my kind of time at UEA, I've taught lots of different things. These are the 3 modules that I've mostly done. So introductory statistics for economists is a common first year module that everyone has to do. Most students are greeted with my lovely face in the first year. This year I'm teaching labour economics, which is a 3rd year optional module, which is much more interesting from my perspective. So we cover topics on education, discrimination, migration, feminist perspectives, a whole range of different stuff in that module. And I'm also, I do a bit of teaching in our School of International Development. So I do a bit of teaching on using data for development studies. So there's quite a lot of overlap with economics in other schools, which I'll come on to later. My background, my research and my training, I'm interested in inequality. My thesis was on intergenerational mobility and kind of structural inequality and how we can measure this. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. So if you have any questions, that's mainly my area, but I can talk more broadly about different parts of economics. Okay, so what I'm this is broadly the 5 questions that I hope to be able to answer in this talk. What is economics? I think there's kind of a formal definition, but I'm going to share my definition of what I think it is. Why you should encourage a student to pursue economics. You might not even know what economics is. I certainly didn't know what economics is until I had a teacher say, Laura, I think you would be really great at economics. You should have a look. And that's how I fell into studying economics. What's it like at university? You might think it's just boring and lots of maths, but that's not true. And what can our graduates go on to do? And what you can do to help them get to where they want to be, essentially. So that's the 5 questions which I hope that I'll be able to answer for you in my talk. Do ask questions throughout in the chat, and I'll get around to them as I'm going through. That's fine. Okay, so what is economics? So I stole the definition from Discover Economics for our the formal definition that I'm including here. So I can't see because there we go. So economics helps us to understand how the world works and how to make it a better place. It's the heart of understanding the major social problems of our time, including climate change, inequality, poverty, healthcare, an aging population, obesity, globalization. Effective solutions to these problems require economic insights. This is like the big definition that Discover Economics kind of give. My definition is smaller and simpler, I think. So my definition of economics is that it's a collection of tools and a way of thinking to address different problems in society. So when you study economics, you're not necessarily studying a thing, you're studying a method, you're studying a way of thinking. And this is, I think, one of the big kind of myths around the discipline that we need to kind of bust a little bit. So my kind of informal way of describing economics is that it's a method, it's a way of thinking, it's how to approach questions, it's a set of tools. It's not necessarily, you're not studying the economy, you're studying a way to think. So the main components of studying economics is these are kind of the 3 main kind of components and areas in which an economist might kind of work. So we would start with an economic model. This is where your theorists come in, the people that really like maths and all of this really technical stuff, and they will come up with a way to, you know, add structure to a problem. How can we, you know, add framework to a problem in that we can get an answer. We need to be able to get an answer, so we need to make some assumptions, we need to put some structure to that problem, and this is what the economic models do, and this is what our theorists do, and this is what is kind of the foundations of everything in economics. So we'll start with a way to kind of structure a particular behavior, a particular issue, and this is where kind of the maths comes in potentially. Like, we're going to think about how we can formalize this, how we can write this down, what mechanisms are at play, what trade-offs are. So economics is a lot about trade-offs. So what trade-off is it that we're studying? And this is what we're going to formalize in our economic models. We're then going to come up with what the economic model tells us is going on. And we're going to want to know whether or not that's true. And this is where the evidence comes in. This is where working with data comes in. And this is where I come in. My interest is all about working with that data and how we can find evidence which does not support the economic models, that we've been able to put structure on our problem. And then from this, we're going to take these 2 pieces of the puzzle, and we're going to be able to make some recommendations. There's going to be some implications for policy. And that's going to be like how economists think about a particular problem. We add formalization to the problem. We put it in a model, a mechanism, a trade-off. We then find evidence which does or does not support it. And then that gives us kind of an implication or a solution which we can then take forward into practice and into policy. So economists, they combine all of these different ways of thinking to be able to understand human behavior, to be able to understand trade-offs, you know, what should a firm do, what should policymakers do, how do individuals make decisions, how do markets work, and all of these kind of different problems that exist or different decisions that exist in our society. And we bring all of these different tools together in order to make recommendations for policy and for practice. So economics is quite big in terms of, there's lots of different pieces of the puzzle to being an economist. And so I've just told you that economics is all of these different things, and it can help solve all of these different parts of the puzzle, but what kind of questions, problems might economists care about? On the slide, this is a screenshot from the Economics Observatory last week or whatever. So this Economics Observatory, those that don't know, it's kind of questions and answers written by economists, and some of the main headlines that they're talking about are very topical. They're not very like what you might expect. So there's been a lot about COP26. Now, always for the past year or so, there's been a lot of stuff about the pandemic, about Brexit, you know, how different countries have navigated the crisis, you know, food hardship, all these different topics. And I've listed here some 4 of my kind of like favorite things that are going on in the economics research world, which you might not necessarily think of when you're thinking about economics. So social and economic networks, which is quite a new field in economics. And this is basically how do people, how do firms, how do countries interact with each other. I've even seen papers looking at, you know, like Instagram influencer cartels and the impact of these influencer cartels on markets, because they could be hugely problematic. Are they anti-competitive? What should we do about these influencer cartels and these kind of things, which you wouldn't think that Instagram and economics might necessarily go together. Also populism. Did austerity cause Brexit? Why was Trump elected? All these different things, which are very current, very interesting, and economists have a lot to say about that. The obvious one is the impacts of COVID, but not just looking at the impact on the economy, but also thinking about the impact of lost schooling. What is the long-term impacts of this lost schooling? What are the short-term impacts of this lost schooling? How has people's behavior changed for the short term, for the longer term, and what does that mean for the society that we live in? This change, are they going to be temporary? Are they going to be long term? What does the future of work look like? So COVID has brought around a lot of new and exciting research topics. And also climate change. Economists have a lot to say about how we can design environmentally friendly policies. How can we encourage businesses to think about their carbon footprint and to change their behaviors? How can we get households, how can we get individuals to recycle more and to change their behavior as well? So, you know, how can we get more people to reduce their heating by that 1 degree, which has a massive impact? Like, what kind of different tools and mechanisms can we put in place? And economists are integral to all of these questions and so many more, but this is just a selection of some of my favorite current research topics. And why you should encourage a student to pursue it, because I'm sure that whatever interest a student has, there is 100% an economist working on that topic. So if they come to you and they're like, oh, I'm really interested in I don't know, like I'm really interested in, you know, well, I don't know what a good one is, because economics solves everything, and to me there's always that immediate link, but whatever it is that they're interested in, there will be an economist working in that area. It's just a matter of finding them. They will exist, for sure. So one of the main barriers as to why more people don't pursue economics, or they don't really know what economics is or what the role of an economist is because of this kind of perception that the discipline has. And I'm sure fellow economists here will have had the same question of, oh, you're an economist, can you give me stock market advice? Or what do you think about the economy? What do you think about the Bank of England's base rate? And my answer to them is, you're asking the wrong kind of economist. Because it's not that economists don't work on these topics, they do. It's just that that's one field of a much larger discipline. So there are economists that do work, you know, in finance and do work on financial markets, and they do work on, you know, should the Bank of England change their base rate? But that's not all of the economists. And when we see, you know, this is the Monetary Policy Committee, there's a very strong image which is projected, and if that's the only image of economics which people are getting, they're not seeing all the other economists which are working in much more diversified industries and diversified areas, because these are the ones that are front and center and always kind of on the news and things. So it's not that the image is incorrect, it's just not the whole picture. There are economists working on this. The Monetary Policy Committee are economists, and that's what they do. They decide on the base rate, but that's not everyone. And I think it's important that everyone else is shown more, so that more people realize that there's economics that they could do and they're interested in. So again, these economists, not only are they going to like the Bank of England and, you know, where you might expect them to be going, they're also going into lots of other parts, lots of other industries, and having jobs of influence and jobs which are really important within the government economic services. They're not all working for the Bank of England. They're working in very many different divisions within the government, not only in the public sector, but also in the private sector. They're working for consultancy firms, you know, bigger like manufacturing companies. They will be hiring economists, insurance companies. And, you know, we need to make sure that as a discipline that we're attracting the best and the brightest to be part of our field. And we need to make sure that we're creating the next generation of economists that reflect the actual society in which we're working with, and that you know, society's voices are being carried through these economists who have positions of influence within our society. So it's really important that these stereotypes and these kind of dominant images are not distorting, you know, ambitions of the best and the brightest who could go on and be really great economists. There's also the financial aspect. I kind of love and hate showing this side because it shouldn't all be about money. But economics graduates do go on to have very successful careers and do very well once they graduate. Studying economics doesn't close any particular doors, and because of the nature of the discipline, it's, you know, learning this particular tool that's very attractive to employers. So they do go on to have excellent careers. So I don't want to dwell too much on the money because it's not about the money. So at university, so obviously I know quite a lot about UEA, but I've tried to, there's many more courses out there that beyond UEA, but this is a list of, you know, example degrees that there are. So you can do kind of straight economics, and typically these might be offered as a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science. And the difference might be the level of technicality involved. And again, even within the BSc economics remit, that will vary hugely across universities. So it's not a clear yes, no, but it's something to be aware of with a student to look at, depending on their confidence level, depending on how they feel that they could do and what they want to do. If they don't want to do a super technical degree, then it's not that economics isn't available to them, it absolutely is. They just need to find that right degree for them. You can also match economics with a bunch of other stuff. So the ones that might be more obvious, so kind of finance, politics, PPE, business economics, accounting, but also we have at UEA economics and international development. So again, it's not always going to be matched with these kind of stereotypical kind of businessy type degrees. And again, the modules and the content and what's learned will vary from university to university, but it's important to know that those options are there. The main two things that, if you forget everything else that I've said, the main two things you do need to remember are that you don't need to have studied economics previously to go on to do a degree in economics, and you do not need to have done A-level maths at all. We don't require A-level maths at UEA, and there's a ton of other universities that do not require A-level maths. Any of the skills or knowledge that is needed, we teach in the first year. So we don't assume any prior maths knowledge, we go from zero. And this is for UEA. If you go to another university which offers a degree which is a less technical, they won't require maths at all. There won't be any maths modules, there won't be statistics, but it just varies from university to university. So it's important to know what is it that you want to have in your degree, what is it that they, you know, they're more interested in. Do they want to build more technical skills, or they like writing essays but they still want to have that way of thinking like an economist? There will be a degree out there that will do that. It just needs to dig and find that degree. What you can expect to study on an economics degree. So this again will vary from university to university, but there are some core elements which are common to most economics degrees. So the first year will be often kind of, this kind of foundational year. Most universities will have, microeconomics and macroeconomics modules. And then from there, you can go on and choose to specialize in whatever it is that they want to do. So I've put here a selection of modules that we offer at UEA. So development economics, behavioral economics. So this is more around like kind of the psychology behind decision making and things, which is very popular with the students. Trade, history of economic thought, which is much more kind of philosophical. Students on the PPE course really like history of economic thought. Government policy and welfare, labour economics, and of course the advanced theory modules and the advanced econometric modules are also available, but you don't need to pursue them. So for whichever degree students look into, there will be common themes through all. So there will be this component of learning how to analyse problems, how to address problems, and these tools to be able to go forward, to find evidence and to present and communicate whatever it is problem that you're looking at. And as I won't dwell too much on this, but what do economics graduates go on to do? Everything is the bottom line. Very few actually go on to banking and finance and insurance, which is probably this kind of stereotypical image. Again, here's a selection of the different jobs which some graduates have gone into. I always like this: the biggest recruiter of economists isn't a bank, it's actually the NHS. Health economists are in huge demand, particularly now. So I think most hospitals and that employ health economists. So and graduates working in different areas, not as an economist, but taking those economic skills. So we do have some graduates that of course do go into banking and investment banking, but many can go into public policy, working in research, NGOs, market regulation, going to the third sector, so working for charities or other kind of organizations. So it's very broad. Economics doesn't close any doors for your students, it will only open them. And my final message of how you can support any of your students that might be interested in economics or you think might be interested in economics is to encourage research. There's so many different ways to get into economics, and there's so many different routes and degree options and other options that there's really, there isn't one degree for all, there's many. So research is super important. If they're not really sure what economics is, but they think they might be interested, then make sure to direct them to resources where you have economists talking to the public, like Discover Economics or the Economics Observatory, where they can see if that's the kind of work that they might be interested in doing. And make sure you challenge that incorrect stereotype of the finance and banking is the entirety of economics, because that's not true. And the more that this message gets out there, the better. Thank you. I think I went over time. I'm very sorry, Sam.
Hey, that's absolutely super, Laura. Thanks. There's loads of great content there. Absolutely brilliant. Really appreciate that insight. One question that did come up, and we have got time for questions at the end of the event, but you mentioned that you don't have to have economics or maths, and actually I didn't do maths at A level before I studied it, but someone asked on the chat box, would someone maybe struggling first year, like if they haven't done A-level economics, what support's put in place, or are the modules that do kind of take them through that A-level content?
Yeah, so obviously from the UEA perspective, so we don't assume any prior knowledge in our first year. Students will get separated into those that have A-level maths and those that didn't, but they do the same content. It's just taught in a different way, because we know that those that have done A-level maths might be more confident than those that haven't. So that's kind of built into how the modules are taught. But we also have, additional support sessions, which are put on not just by the school, but also by the Central Student Support Services and things. Peer-assisted learning is part of all of our core modules. So we know that our students are coming from different backgrounds and have different past knowledge, have done different modules, even different education systems. We have students from all over the world, and we don't assume that there's any past knowledge. We start from the beginning, and those that need the additional support, it's there for them. Those that don't, we let them kind of carry on. So it is there. Students aren't at a disadvantage just because they haven't got A-level economics or any previous knowledge.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Laura. So yeah, so even if you're sat at a school or you're working with a school that doesn't provide the subject, it doesn't mean that that door is closed. They can still definitely be studying the subject.
Yeah.
Well, to take one last question before we move on to Tom and Evie, I think, this question kind of said, are there other subjects that might complement it maybe and give a bit of a good grounding, even if they don't do economics?
No, because we have students that have done such varied backgrounds, and depending what they've done in the past, they'll find different parts of it easier. So if they've done A levels, which are kind of more essay based, so kind of history, English, where they've had to write, and then these students find the whole writing their argument up and writing an essay really fine. But then students that have done more sciencey based subjects, they might find the writing bit more challenging, more difficult, but they're fine with the maths and the notation. So I don't think there's any subjects which are kind of more beneficial than another. I think the main thing is that they enjoy their subjects and they're sure with the choice that they're making. And then where there's any kind of, there needs to be more skills development in any particular areas, we can work on that. It's just making sure that they're really happy with where they are.
Perfect, thanks. And actually, I'll hand over to Tom and Evie, because I think they have actually got a slide that does touch on that as well. So thanks so much for that, Laura. Really appreciate you giving that insight. And if you have got any further questions for Laura, do put them in the chat box and we can come to those later on. So thanks for that, Laura. And we'll move on to our next guests. Tom and Evie are part of the Government Economics Service and actually based at the Ministry of Defence. So it's super to have them on today to give the apprenticeship kind of insight, because not many people are maybe aware that there is an apprenticeship pathway with economics, and it's very exciting. Now, because Tom and Evie are to the Ministry of Defence, obviously security is very high, so getting on the Zoom in the first place is tricky. Doing a screen share is another thing. So I'm going to share my screen now with Tom's slides. And then, over to you, Tom and Evie. So I'll just get these up now, but go for it.
Yeah, cheers, Sam, and cheers for bailing me out with the slides. Probably should have come a bit more prepared with that one. As Sam, good introduction, really sort of took my first few slides away from me. So me and Evie are from Ministry of Defence, and we took a slightly different route into economics upon leaving sixth form. So we're still doing a degree, but we're doing it alongside working, which is sort of an interesting, different route. And I joined in September 2019 as the first cohort, so it's quite a new route. If you don't mind going to the second slide, please, Sam. So just a quick introduction to the civil service. I know Sam said that it would be good to hear our sort of route into the apprenticeship, so I won't dwell too long on this. I won't make you be interactive and guess. If you don't mind clicking again, Sam, it should pop up and tell us. There you go. So as mentioned, we work for Ministry of Defence as civil servants. So this is a vast organisation spanning 23 departments, and as it says on the screen, it employs around 450,000 people. And these are all responsible for delivering public services and supporting the government to develop and implement its policies. And then myself and Evie work in a sub-branch of this called the GES, which stands for the Government Economics Service, which Evie's just going to take you through a bit more detail.
Hi, everyone. What do economists do? I won't dwell too much because you've heard a bit about it, but us as government economists, it's all about collecting UK economic data, analysing this data, and then use it to inform and evaluate policies. On the slide now is, on the slide now are just a few of the many subjects that you can use to sort of get your foot in the door with economics, and also to help with your economic studies. Obviously, I know you've heard it already, but maths and economics are on there. Helpful, but obviously not essential, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that as well later. So next slide, Sam. Yeah, so me and Tom, we're on the GEST app, which is the Government Economic Service degree apprenticeship programme, which is the first economic degree apprenticeship programme, and it's all about young people sort of learning economics while working in government. So there's the vacancies are nationwide, so you can be based in any of the regional offices. It's not just London based, and you can be in sort of any of the departments. Obviously myself and Tom, we're in the Ministry of Defence, but you can be sort of placed anywhere. Everywhere needs economics teams. In terms of studying, it's 4 years long, and the degree is done with the University of Kent. So your learning is completed online. You get to do sort of a week's residential stay at the uni each year, but the rest of it is done virtually on a Friday. So you sort of work Monday to Thursday, get Friday off to study. As I mentioned, 4 years long, and you can see it on the screen, but you get paid sort of quite well to do it. So once you finish, you have a level 6 apprenticeship, a degree in economics without the debt, and the experience of having worked in a government economics team for 4 years. So that's a little bit about the scheme. Sam wanted us to talk about sort of how we got into it. So for me, I was always interested in economics and sort of the financial sector. So I applied to unis to do economics sort of as a backup, but I knew that I didn't really want to go to university. So we had a careers lady at our school who was lovely and she was really great, but sort of I feel like the push was always to sort of you just go and do an apprenticeship with like one of the big five, like you do like a tax and audit and accounting apprenticeship sort of thing, which I applied to all of them. To be honest, they're so competitive, I wasn't really fussy at that point. But yeah, I mean, they're so competitive, I was kind of struggling. So in the end, I just started Googling sort of any apprenticeship, sort of finance, economics related. So I actually stumbled across this one on Google. And yeah, I applied. Like the others in the private sector, there's quite a few different stages. You've got like the application, you've got the psychometric testing, the phone call interview, the assessment day. Mine was virtually, mine was actually meant to be the first week of lockdown. So obviously it got made on Zoom last minute. But yeah, so I applied and it ended up being the job that I got. But yeah, so that was kind of my experience with applying and sort of discovering the scheme. I think Tom has a slightly different experience, which he's going to talk about.
Yeah, cheers, Evie. So yeah, I think just building on as well what Laura said in the past presentation was that you really don't need to have had experience of economics prior to applying for this, which I think is like most cases with degrees. So I studied maths, computer science and history, and I didn't even know what economics was. So I was coming in completely on base level. And like, to be honest, when they say they don't expect any prior knowledge, they are being completely honest. Yeah, they just teach from the ground up, which is really good. And yeah, and I also think that like subjects with like a good like problem solving nature helped me. So like, although it's a different subject matter completely, you can sort of apply some similar techniques you've learned through different subjects to the economics. So in terms of how I heard about the scheme, it was from a family member sent it to me, a LinkedIn link. And as I mentioned, I was sort of the first cohort. So I think it was sort of the marketing's a lot better now. But I definitely think if my career advisor had sort of known about it as well in school, then maybe it would have been a lot more sort of applications from then on. And I think also the sort of opinions around apprenticeship as well is like changing really positively. So sort of when I was coming through sixth form, I sort of saw apprenticeships as maybe something you do if you didn't get into the uni you wanted to, or you didn't want to be studying all the time, which is definitely not the case. But apprenticeships can be completely academic as well, which I think is definitely great to get across to the students, because I was sort of wasn't put off by it, but I was sort of a bit apprehensive maybe going into looking for an apprenticeship thinking that they were more manual sort of thing. Another thing I'd say about the scheme is that there's such a great culture for apprentices in the civil service at the minute. So I know there's a lot of young people on degrees as well, degree apprenticeships, but I think something me and Evie have sort of experienced is that as masters apprenticeships become available, that a lot of the managerial team are also getting involved in apprenticeships, which sort of just is even better because they understand how it can be difficult at times studying for a degree as well as working. So I've always been allowed time off when I need it, or I've never got burnt out studying and working at the same time. So there's a great work-life balance as well. And Evie touched on as well the private sector apprenticeships. I also had applied for, sort of just setting the net out wide when I was leaving sixth form. And although they are great and they offer different benefits, one thing I'd say about this one is that you get a degree in economics, and as Laura mentioned in the past presentation, like the areas that you can go into are so vast. Like if maybe after the end of the 4 years you think that economics isn't for you, you can then choose a different career path, and you've got a really strong grounding of your economics degree with 4+ years of paid work experience. So it's sort of pretty invaluable at that stage. And yeah, I think that was pretty much what I had to touch on. Definitely happy to field questions. I'm sure there's been stuff that we may have missed, but as I think flashed on the screen, find out more details on the government website. And to be honest, if you just type in government economic service apprenticeship, it should be sort of the first thing that comes up. But yeah, I'll pass back to you, Sam. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom and Evie. Absolutely brilliant. And yeah, do check out that link. As you saw on the slides, the next round of applications opens just after Christmas. So, we know what it's like with these things. It's not like the UCAS cycle. You've got to be hot and on it. But a good question that popped up in the chat box here, and Tom or Evie, whoever wants to take it, feel free. Yeah, obviously there's certain grades, but what else do you think that it was that helped you secure the role? Because I'm sure they're looking for more than just grades as part of the application.
I think the main stage I noticed where they sort of were interested in what you were doing outside of school was in my interview, my final interview, and it was a lot of sort of like situational type questions, and it was like, tell me a time when you've displayed this skill, or tell me a time when you've done this, and a lot of it is wanting to see examples of how you've sort of been organised in the past, or how you've been a good team player. So I know they drum on a lot about sort of extracurricular activities when it comes to applying to universities, and I don't know if like the GES particularly care if you played football or something for like a week in year 8, but it's just sort of they do help you bank up examples of times when you worked well with other people, and how you helped sort of settle disagreements, and you were able to be organised and stuff like that. So I'd say extracurriculars, not necessarily for the interest, but just for the examples to answer them sort of questions, I think helped.
Yeah, I just build on that. I mean, I hope they do care about year 8 football, because that's something I definitely put on my application. But yeah, no, definitely as what you said, Evie. I think as well, my part-time job really helped me in the interview, because when you're sort of thinking of situational examples at like 18, it's like you don't really have too much to go off other than, as you said, like maybe a couple of sports teams or situations at school. So I think working part-time through college really helps me, because I could sort of then display that I have experience of working and studying at the same time, and sort of managing to like maintain my grades shows that I am organised, and I can manage my time quite well. And yeah, as Evie said, like being organised is sort of really good quality to be able to display. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, massive thanks, Tom and Evie, for doing that one. Great to get an insight that there are different pathways into economics. It's something for everyone. There's not a right or a wrong way, but our young people need to know about all the options so they can make that informed decision. So thanks so much, Tom and Evie. Really appreciate that. Now, so we've heard about, how we can get into it, but now I'm going to kind of pass on to Lara so we can see, well, what can we actually do now in our schools? Yes, we might have an economics department, we might not, but either way, what can we do to inspire our young people? So I'm going to hand over to Lara from Inspiring the Future now to kind of give a bit of a tangible insight into what you could do next.
Great, thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. So I'll just share my screen. Okay, so as Sam said, I'm Lara and I'm from Inspiring the Future. So thank you very much for having me today. So I'll just talk you through what Inspiring the Future is, how you can use it, as Sam said, to practically put some of these things into action. And then if I do have time, I might show you a quick demonstration of using the system as well, because I think that always helps to bring it to life. So what is Inspiring the Future? So these are just some quotes that we have. So Inspiring the Future is a self-service network where teachers can connect with volunteers from the world of work, and you can be quite specific about the volunteers that you connect with. So for example, you can connect with people who have studied economics or related subjects who are in jobs that you want to hear from. So some quotes from students after sessions, as well as teachers, talking about the Inspiring the Future network. So just to mention, we're part of a charity called Education and Employers, which provides a lot of the research behind careers-related learning and employer engagement. So what can be some of your aims that can be achieved through Inspiring the Future? So 4 or more encounters with employers means less chance of a student becoming NEET, challenges gender social stereotypes, and the main one perhaps that you're focusing on is linking careers to curriculum learning as well. So as I said, it's a free self-service network for state secondary schools and colleges, and it's available to teachers, careers leaders, subject leads within those establishments, and you can have multiple teachers who have accounts from the same school as well. And you can use it to plan virtual or in-person employer engagement activities to motivate students and link to curriculum learning. For careers leaders as well, it's also can be used to meet Gatsby benchmarks 3 through to 7. And as I said, it's the network to link to a pool of diverse volunteers from a range of different job types. So what encounters can you plan? So a range of different things. The most common ones would be a virtual careers talks or career insights, and speed networking mock interviews tend to be the most common ones as well. But these are just some of the range that you can plan. So just to give a bit of a case study of an economics activity. So at this high school, they connected curriculum learning with careers by students who were investigating microeconomics on business behaviour, heard from 3 different speakers. So they heard from a senior economist, policy advisor, regulator, and the school asked the speakers to specifically share their pathway, details around their job, and what advice they'd share with the young people. And I've just taken a screen grab of, you can see the description that the teacher wrote, talking about the specific activity. So it was a virtual activity where he asked for those different things. So how does it actually work? And I can show you a bit more in detail in a moment, but you would first create your employer engagement activity. So you might say, on this date, we're looking to host these employers, these volunteers with these students, and these are our aims, and this is what we're looking to do. I'd recommend posting, I say at least a month in advance before it takes place. You then invite volunteers. So on our system, you can then search, use the search filters and invite specific volunteers from different sectors and industries. Then arrange a time to brief them, so just giving them a quick call beforehand, or having a virtual meeting to just chat through the format of the session. Then you'd actually host it, whether that's virtually or in person, depending on your school's policies at the moment, and then making sure to reflect on your encounter with your young people. Just to point out other opportunities with Inspiring the Future, we also have some pre-recorded resources on our system. So they're ones that you can instantly download. So we've got an NHS one, an Inspiring Women one, and Making an Entrepreneur one as well, where somebody talks about their journey to starting their own business. And then we also have a range of how-to guides and training videos. And then you're welcome to book a call with me as well if you do want to chat through your ideas and actually create your activity together. I'm happy to do that. And we also have corporate partners. So for example, Bank of America is one of our partners, and we do special partnership events that we facilitate. So if you do want to get involved, just let us know. So next steps for you would be, if you haven't already, you can sign up or log in and just go to inspiringthefuture.org to create your free account. It just takes a few moments, and then you'll get some emails from us with further instructions. You can then access our how-to guides and instructional video to start planning your employer encounters, and you can also request pre-recorded resources. So if I have time, I might do a little demo of the account. Is that all right with you, Sam?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a homepage of what your teacher account would look like. So from here, as I said, you can access those pre-recorded resources. So that's on the box on the right-hand side. So you can see there's a range for primary, and then there's a few for secondary at the bottom, and you can just click on them and read a little bit about them. We've also got our how-to guides, and they're differentiated by, so creating your encounter, we've got ideas of what to do, and then as well as how to practically do it on the portal, inviting, briefing, hosting and reflecting, so you can have an explore of those. And then in terms of searching for volunteers, so I know Sam and I had a little play around looking for volunteers related to economics. So what I'm going to do is I'll just show you how it works. So you can see on the, I'll just make it a little bit bigger. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's lots of different search filters. So you can search by specific sector. So you can see in there, you've got lots of different sectors in there. You can also search by whether they've done an apprenticeship or not, other specialist topics such as working with disability, inclusion and diversity, if they took a vocational route, specific curriculum subjects, and job title as well, which is a really useful one. And at the moment it's searching for local volunteers. So my radius is set up in central London, but if I tick virtual and tick search, then we're suddenly looking for volunteers who might be available to volunteer nationally, so that you're not limited to your local area. So I'm just going to click on the list view, so that I found that a bit easier to use, and you'll see in a moment, you can see the volunteers' job titles and organisations. So at the moment, we haven't applied any filters. We're just looking for virtual volunteers. So you can see, for example, Natasha, civil service, and you can click on view profile to read a bit more about her. And then if you do like the look of a volunteer, you can click add to shortlist, which is like adding them to your basket, and then you would invite them to a specific activity. But just to give you an example of what might be really useful for you. So for example, if we search part of economics, something like that, then it'll pick up anything with any job title with that word in. So you can see here, economic crime policy lead, economic advisor. So you can see there's a few different job titles, and you can just have a look through. So it might be that in your local area, you don't have so many available, but virtual is obviously a really great option, because you're not limited by industries in your area. Sam, were there other job titles that we had a play around with last time? I think we did policy, didn't we?
Yeah, with policy, I think there was a few analysts in there. So I think, yeah, we fortunately found there were a whole host of different people that are on this resource that you can be getting into your school.
Yeah, so you can just have a play around, and analysts as well. But yeah, happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure if any have come through on the chat or not.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Lara. It's really, really good. So we wanted to kind of make sure that everyone could see, I'm sure some of you are already using that service, but make sure everyone knew how easy it is to get an economist in to talk to your students in absence of actually having the subject delivered in your school. I mean, we are kind of running short of time now. It's been absolutely brilliant, the content that we've got in here. And I do want to kind of come to Matt in a moment. Just before we do, there's a couple of questions that have come in. People saying, the GES opportunities are they in the Northeast? Well, the GES opportunities are across all public service departments. So yes, there's opportunities in the Northeast. There's opportunities across the country. So do check out the website. People saying, what skills maybe, if it's not that I have to do economics. What I would say, some of the websites that have been suggested by Laura and other people on the call, do have a look at the Discover Economics website, and you can actually get insights from academic or industry economists highlighting those skills that are transferable from from things you do in the classroom, but also like Evie and Tom said, things you do outside the classroom. So, you know, Discover Economics ourselves, we've got a bank of kind of outreach opportunities. We've got virtual events coming up for National Careers Week, International Women's Day. We've got a schools competition where, you know, fingers crossed with COVID, if schools that enter and they get through to the final, they can actually even go to Hamburg and present their ideas and solutions to some of those real problems that Laura's talking about. It's an international final in Hamburg, so do check our website out for that. But like we said at the start, we know that there's a lack of actual teachers for economics. So just really quickly, Matt, I'm going to introduce Matt from OCR, just to do a bit of a shout out to something that everyone should keep an eye out for, because it's something that should appeal to lots of the schools on the call.
Brilliant, thanks, Sam. Yeah, thanks to everyone for what they've said so far, and I think it shows the opportunities and places that economics can take you. Means that economics graduates or anybody who studied economics can go to so many places that we've noticed that, unfortunately, in education, not many economics or economists trickle down to actually teaching economics. And therefore, there is possibly a lack of knowledge or understanding across many different schools or students about where economics can take them, and even if it's a subject that's for them, because they're not exposed to it. So Sam and I have been putting together a project where we really want to try and change that and do what we can to make a difference, to put economics in front of as many students as possible. So my role at OCR is the subject advisor for business and economics, and what I do after teaching business and economics for the past 15 years, I now advise schools, I do teacher training, and I do lots of different things within the exam board. What we're looking to do is put together a project, and I say what we're looking to do, it's gaining momentum, it's getting ready to be launched. What we want to do is offer free training to schools, predominantly to schools that don't offer economics at the moment, or to schools that maybe do offer economics, but they don't have a specialist economics teacher. It's somebody that's maybe just fallen into that role and might need a little bit more support within what they're doing. And essentially what we're going to do is any teachers that are keen to learn about it or to understand what it would take, we're going to teach them economics. So it will be a course that runs over 2 years, so that there will be regular whole day events. There'll be 6 a year, where we're going to teach the entire specification for A-level economics. What will happen as a broad outline is that there'll be part of the day will be spent on the core knowledge. Sam has already lined up loads of industry specialists that will come in and talk and bring it to life. So teachers won't just have a textbook knowledge, they'll have the textbook plus the real life knowledge. And then I'll come in at the end and I'll teach them how economics is assessed, so that they'll be able to deliver it to students in a way that will allow them to be successful within the subject, within their school. So what we're really, really looking to do is get as many schools as we can signed up to this. I'm also looking to see how much free resources I can take out of my employer. So Cambridge University have a lot of resource. I'm trying to see how much I can get out of them to bring to the project as well. And what I really want to do is, with everyone here, if you don't have an economics department, please go and speak to either, it's typically, in my experience, it's a business studies teacher or it's a maths teacher, but it can be to any teacher. Speak to the assistant or deputy head that's in charge of curriculum. Don't take no for an answer, because their first answer is normally no. Knock on their door 2 or 3 times, ask them over and over. So we need to sign people up for economics because it is transformational for the students that take it, and we want to put it in front of as many students as we can. So that is the project. I'm happy to put my email address on the chat here, so if anybody wants to get in touch and ask me a little bit more about it, if anyone wants to get signed up, talk to me or talk to Sam. But that, in a nutshell, is the project, and we want to get economics in front of as many students as we can.
Brilliant, Matt. That was a brilliant sales pitch there. So top entrepreneurial skills definitely coming out of that. But you know, this is a brilliant opportunity for all these schools on the call that don't have the subject yet. And like Matt says, don't take no for an answer. We will be sharing more on Discover Economics newsletters, so make sure you're signed up for our newsletters. You know, we'll share Matt's details as well. Get in touch direct. Let's make some change in your schools and make sure more young people, and especially those underrepresented groups, are aware of what economics really is. Hopefully you've learned a lot today. Massive thanks to Laura, Evie, Tom, Lara and Matt for giving really valuable input. The session is recorded, so we'll be sharing it afterwards. But thank you very much for the interaction on the chat box as well. We appreciate your time. But this is just the start of the journey. So make sure we put it all into action, and we can see some real change over the coming months and years. So thanks very much for joining, and take care, everyone.